We are at the technology school at Shrivenham at the Defence Academy in the UK. And you know the way when you leave a car in a bad neighbourhood, something happens to it, pieces go missing? It seems that if you leave a tank within reach of the Remy engineers, they will split it in two. So they did that to a Centurion in Bovington, and now we got a Leopard that they'll split. But this is lovely.
This is awesome.
So you can see all sorts of things. It answer every question you ever had about the design of the tank and why it is what it is. And it's completely kitted out. It's not just a shell. You got the ammunition, you got the NBC system at the front, you got the engine at the back. Where do you want to start?
This is super cool. These are like a lot of the components that even if you're inside the tank, you can't see from any of the positions. So you can see how some of the components start to work together.
Let alone maintain them.
Yeah, exactly. So that's super cool. This is a very unique way, and there's no better way to learn than by seeing it for yourself and get your hands on it.
So why don't we start with the obvious stuff like the gun?
Yeah.
Which you can see how much of the turret is taken up by the gun. It's got a couple of features, I guess. So the thing I always hop on about gun depression is the fulcrum for the gun is here.
Right.
So people always forget that there's a lot of gun on the inside of the turret as well. It's got to go somewhere. When you depress the gun, you've got to have room for the gun to go up, which is why you have a high silhouette.
Right, so the lower the silhouette that you make the turret, then the more restricted that your gun motion is.
But you make a smaller target, and it also means you make a lighter target for the same amount of armor.
Is there like a sweet spot?
That depends on what your doctrine is. So
Okay.
if you're the evil red commie horde, and you're charging across the German plains, you don't care about gun depression.
Right.
You just want to be a small, hard target. Whereas if you're living inside this tank for 3 days, waiting for the evil red commie horde who are late, then you need lots of room inside. Okay. You can see the length of the recoil stroke goes down to your shell catcher down there, or your casing catcher. And as you see the size of the casing, the size of the catcher, it's kind of like, well, this is what, 5 rounds? Then you got to start flinging them out the side.
Where would they fling them out from?
It should be a pistol port, I think, or a little hatch on the far side there, directly behind the loader. Unless I've gone completely mad.
From behind? Right by your face. Right by my face. Where, here?
Oh, the one just behind the searchlight housing.
Oh, shoot.
Look at the slope. Look at the channel.
Yeah, comes right out here.
This is the hatch here.
Yeah,
Okay.
So we got the searchlight stowage box, so of course is in the way, which is a little inconvenient.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But annoyingly, so we got ammunition, of course, stowed everywhere. You got a ready rack in the bustle. You got ammunition stowed vertically. Underneath, of course, that's you can imagine what the hassles are if the ammunition blows up. And now, of course, it's all protected these days in stowage behind armored bins.
Yeah, that would be more than a hassle, I'd assume.
That would, yes. Then you start going to the oh bugger, the tank is on fire test.
Right.
Which I don't know if you saw it. We did it at Aquino. Were you there when
That's
we did
right.
the test in Aquino?
Yeah.
So we got like 4 random guys, put them in a Leopard 1, said, oh bugger, the tank is on fire, and they're all on the ground in 17 seconds, even the gunner. Over here. So obviously it kind of sneak its way up and out through the side rotating hatch.
And that's super cool. Now that's a feature that is really cool to see in this particular kind of presentation. It's a side rotating hatch. Can you show us how it works?
Possibly, I don't know. Okay, up, release the lock.
Oh.
There we go. So if you remember when I was doing it with the Panther and I had to go crank, they figured out how to do it much faster.
Right.
So you get the benefits of the overhead protection without going crank for 5 minutes just because your tank's on fire. Now, if you look at a new Leopard, like the A7s with the really thick, the SCRV 122, for example, has a really, really thick turret roof. And the hatch actually slides into the roof. It's motorized. I'm there looking at it going, how hard is it to get that thing open in a hurry if the power's out?
Right. Is there like a backup to do it manually?
Well, even at that, it's going to be crank. So I'm going to lay bets you have to hop out the loader side.
Gotcha.
But other things you see down here. So, I mean, we've got you see the torsion bars.
Yeah, that's an interesting to see from. So those ones are going to be. They're not connected to the floor of the tank. Obviously.
No, they bolt into an anchor point on the far side.
Right.
And all it is, I mean, if you look at it, there's nothing here. It's simply the metal itself twists,
Yeah.
and it gives that spring.
It's almost like. So the floors would be supported by these structures here.
The subturret floor or what have you. Of course, this is a platform here for the turret.
Right.
So the driver, I mean, you can see he's just sitting on the whole floor itself. And you can also see why the two sides of a torsion bar tank, the wheels are not exactly parallel. Because you've got to have room for the two torsion bars to be side by side. There are exceptions, like some of the Soviet tanks have short torsion bars. Not quite sure how they did it, but it worked out fairly nicely. And then you can also see wonderfully how much room do you have in here.
Right. It's cozy.
So, gunner's backrest versus commander's knees. And note how they are wearing the beret. Do you see a flaw with this?
No.
You've been in enough tanks.
But I haven't done all that. I've never really worn any berets.
What have you worn when you're riding around in a tank?
A helmet, typically.
Ah, why would you wear a helmet?
Just in case your forehead smashes into one of the parts of the tank on the inside. So he has no protection if... So
Yeah, I mean, let alone the enemy bashing your head in.
Yeah.
You bash your head in with the beret. I mean, there's a guy standing off camera. He's got a KRH tag, so I'm presuming you're a tanky.
I certainly am, yeah.
Yeah. And you presumably don't wear a beret anymore.
Definitely not.
Yep. For these reasons. So after World War II, about 1946, the British Army Medical Corps Royal Army Medical Corps did an assessment, and they said, well, had they been wearing the Royal Armoured Corps helmet, this percentage of wounds would have been in the area that would have been covered. But no, you got to be stylish in,
Right.
in the Panzertruppen, and I guess in the British Army in the 1940s and to the 1960s. So,
that's a change since then, I'd assume.
Well, yes, there were health and safety has come in, but this time I agree with it. I mean, there were two things I will always wear in the tank when I was out in patrol. One was a helmet, and the other was my eye protection. Body armor, I wasn't so worried about, but I mean, they told me to wear it, but who's going to wear it? The other thing you'll see is the microphone, throat mic.
Right.
I hate those. I vastly prefer the boom mic, but
Is it due to comfort or is it due to functionality?
I'm actually not sure what the benefits are to throat mics. I mean, do you know anybody that does motorcycle riding?
No.
I'm told a lot of Harley riders, if they're going along, they'll use throat mics for some reason. And I don't know what the benefit is either. So,
In my experience,
if
when I
you're a
was-
biker,
Yeah, like when I was in the Strids 103, they have
Yeah.
the third mics, but I have a
Oh, they did,
really
didn't
small
they?
neck, and so it kind of depends. I had to kind of hold it a little bit to really be heard. It was a challenge for if you have different size bodies, you might have a different size neck, and so it comes adjusted.
they got a very strangely shaped helmet in Sweden as well, don't they?
Darth Vader-ish.
It doesn't exactly, I don't know, it didn't make me look all that great. Optic system, so I mean, look at this. When they cut this thing, they just cut it right in the middle of the rangefinder. So you can see the mirrors on their heads and so on. Auxiliary sight, you can see the way the auxiliary sight kind of comes down to come next to the gun tube, which, of course, the gun's on the far side. And
Right. But you could see really well how it would line up.
yeah, and of course, then you go down, you see the turret bearings.
That's it.
Not exactly big, are they?
No, actually. How many do you think are in here?
She has me on the spot. I
Shoes on the other foot.
Oh, bugger. I'm going to go with 153
Okay. Yeah.
and prove me wrong. And now somebody somewhere is going to find a Leopard, remove the turret, and start counting. Chieftain was wrong with the amount of turret bearings. But again, you can see how it sits in. I was talking with at Tankfest, one of the lasses used to be a Remy mech. He said, oh yeah, to undo the Warrior turret, you spin it counterclockwise 7 times and it kind of pops up. It's obviously not the way it really works. Or the other one is you spin it counterclockwise 3 times, stop at the front left, clockwise twice, stop over the front right, clockwise, counterclockwise once, and then the turret pops off and you can lift it off.
Like a cheat code.
Yeah, basically. What's the combination to your tank? 1, 2, 3. But I mean, there's obviously a lot more in this than just sight system, control, gun. You got power pack and radios.
Right.
I mean, look at all the gadgets and gizmos that are in here.
What's the pink doodad on the bottom? Does that have something to do with steering or so?
That looks like a circuit breaker box, I think, looking at it. And of course, when you're building one of these things, insert tab A into slot B. The first 2 things that come together. And the tank is for complicated enough.
Yeah.
I mean, you've been in World War II battleships and warships. You got into the engine room of those?
Was there?
I mean, you look at it, you got pipes and everything out there. It's kind of like someone somewhere put pen to paper and said, this is the first thing that gets put together.
Yeah.
At least in a tank, I guess you start with the hull. But anyway, so what else have we got on here? Anything else to attract your attention?
Well, we have the power pack in the back, which is always interesting.
Oh, the famous MTU diesel. What was it, about 750 horse, am I about, give or take. And I mean, the hull was used for anti-aircraft system, the Leopard. You have the ARB, you have the bridge layer. I mean, this tank just served everywhere, doing everything. Can't say very much wrong about it.
What were some things that we learned from the Leopard 1 that are no longer present in the Leopard 2 that might not have been ideal? Like, obviously there's advancements that are made, but sometimes you learn that some things don't work out very well.
Well, the big one is the ammunition stowage, I'd say. I mean, they sorted that one out right quick. So in the Leopard 2, it's a bit like the Abrams. There's an armored door that slides to and fro, and the ammunition a lot of it is stored behind the loader. But they retained the ammunition. You can see there, the extra stowage in the front hull. So that got retained in the Leopard 2. Obviously it got a lot faster. The stabilization system got improved. So we got the coincidence rangefinder here. Well, no, now you went on to a laser rangefinder.
Okay.
The very early Leopard 2s, people forget. So that box on the front there, it's an infrared searchlight. The earliest Leopard 2s had a passive image intensifier.
What's the difference?
A low light television, basically.
Okay.
So that's active. So that's a spotlight, basically. Sends out a beam of light, and well, can you see a flaw with sending out a beam of light to find your target?
Well, yeah, your target's going to find you.
Yes, faster than you will find it.
Right.
So you would deal with this with, you have a spotlight tank out of the entire platoon, let's say in the American service, 5 tanks at a time. Spotlight tank goes on, turns on its light, goes around for about 15 seconds, and then turns it off and goes somewhere else.
So you draw the short straw and you end up the spotlight tank.
Yes. And, well, you kind of rotate it. So, I mean, it's like which tank goes first in the column. And usually it's the wing tank of the CO, but you want to sort of spread the love a bit so everybody takes the risk.
Fair enough.
So you do that. But Leopard 2 originally had a low light television, got taken off, put onto Leopard 1s, and then got replaced by a thermal imager. And so you have to look at an old picture of Leopard 2 to see that. Other changes, I mean, the basic design though of Leopard 2, it's still torsion bar, you still have the MTU engine, the layout remains the same with the driver off on one side. So it was just overall improvements in technology and a better stabilization system because you can now fit it all, make it made a little bit smaller. And of course the other thing you can see is because it's all split in two, it's just how thick the armor is everywhere, including on the mantlet. And you might think it would be a bit thicker than it is.
Right.
But I mean, Leopard 1 was one of those lighter designed. Mobility is more important than armor. Can you outrun a 105 cannon or a 125 cannon? Probably not. And I think that was one of the flaws they improved upon in Leopard 2.
Yeah.
They made that just a little bit thicker. But I mean, really, the only thick parts are the mantlet and the upper hull. And that's basically it. So.
Something that is really, really clear in this configuration where the tank is split right in two is you talk about the driver's compartment being its own compartment. Like in the other tanks, it's very open and you could go to and fro from different positions. But here, once you're in, you're here. And there's one way out and there's one way in, and I don't see any...
There's probably somewhere in the turret basket that you can spin it round. You might be able to squeeze out behind the loader there, perhaps.
Possible.
I think
would you have to
that
move the
looks it.
turret for that?
Yes, you would, absolutely. So, yes, okay, so if the tank is on fire and he can't get out there, but look what's down there. Look what's behind him.
Does he have a hatch there?
You got a hatch, you got a belly hatch.
Okay.
So you can get out that way. And in fact, in theory, under fire, the entire crew could spin the turret around. They can get out the belly hatch as well. And you've seen video footage of them doing it. They'll dismount the coaxial machine gun so they got something to shoot at with as well. And they basically turned their tank into a bunker. So they're in between. They got the overhead cover of the tank. They're on the ground and they're shooting away with a machine gun, which always struck me as a bit of a stupid idea. I mean, if my tank is blown up, I'm not going to be shooting my gun. I'm going to be running away to get another tank. I mean, this infantry stuff doesn't suit well with me at all. But anyway. Other things to say, I mean, again, other features. NBC filter. So we've got, let's see if we can pull this out.
NBC, that would be nuclear
Nuclear-biological chemical. So we've got a couple of filters here in the gas system.
Okay.
And it's like a gas mask for the tank. So I guess carbon or charcoal will be in this and there'll be something else in this. And so they look how they're making use of all the space. There's barely a couple of inches in there because if you have wasted space, you have a heavier tank. So lovely little design that. Let's see, anything else worth talking about in here? Well, there's probably lots, but anything else worth talking about right this second?
I think that it's interesting to see, like what you mentioned, how what you mentioned with space, whether that's from the parts where the humans are accessing or otherwise, every bit of space is used up. So it's really, really clear with this configuration, just like, can we fit as much ammunition in here as possible?
Oh,
Where can we put it best? And it's interesting to see how every space that you can think of that isn't with another electrical or physical component to move something around is filled with ammunition. So what kinds of ammunition would this tank shoot, and does that matter where you place it? Like, you're going to put different kinds of ammunition where?
It does actually, because some ammunitions are filled with liquid. White phosphorus is a case in point. So generally speaking, white phosphorus has to be stowed vertically. So if you look on the far side of the loader on the ready rack, you'll see that there is a set of vertical stands.
Right.
If you stow it horizontally, so I am told, because there was never a white phosphorus around for the 120 on the Abrams, because the Abrams is all horizontal stowage, you can't stow it horizontally like you got in the bustle on the floor here or in the front. So you generally had to, on the M60s, I guess, or the early, well, actually even the IP105s, you'd have to stow the ammunition vertically by the loader's feet. It's the only place to put it. But if it's by the loader's feet, it is now available to be exploded if something penetrates the hull. So you've just ruined your protection system of having to stow the ammunition. But as you say, so one of the big things in World War II for designing the Pershing tank was they had to have at least 70 rounds of ammunition. The European Theatre of Operations wouldn't take it with less than 70 rounds of ammunition. How did they do it? They did exactly what you said. They reconfigured everything to cram ammunition anywhere they could, and if it made life a little bit more uncomfortable for the crewmen, so be it. You had to have the ammo. Right, well, I think we will move on to the next vehicle, and the next video we'll see you on the next one.